The war rages on in Ukraine in spite of a major international summit at the weekend aimed at finding a pathway to peace. This Monday, day 845 of the war, there are reports of Russian shelling of Ukraine's Poltava region, 12 people, including children, injured as the bombardment took out power supply to over 50,000 homes. Over the weekend, while the conference was taking place in Switzerland, Russian forces took a village in Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Ukraine's forces there held back by shortages of arms and ammunition. Meanwhile, over the northeast Ukraine border, Russia's Belgorod region has been hit. The governor there says at least 5 people were killed in Ukrainian cross-border shelling. Now, much of this a consequence of Russia stepping up its attacks throughout May on the region of Kharkiv and on the city itself. Now, Ukraine's war effort, the act of trying to push back the full-scale invasion of the country launched by Vladimir Putin on February the 24th, 2022, has been hampered by delays in funding and arms supply from the West. Let's hear from NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion, NATO allies have provided unprecedented levels of support. This has been indispensable for Ukrainians to fight back and survive as a sovereign nation. But this winter and spring, we saw serious delays and gaps in delivering support, with consequences on the front line. We cannot let this happen again.
At the Peace Summit in Switzerland, 80 countries signed up to a recognition of Ukraine's territorial integrity of 1991, the year the Soviet Union collapsed and Ukraine declared independence. Let's bring in Natia Seskuria, who's Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. And Natia, thank you very much for being with us here on France 24. We always appreciate your time. Interesting, looking at the countries that didn't sign up to that accord: India, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates. What do you make of this kind of split?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, it's good to be back. It's clear that there are some divisions. I guess the success of the summit is that it still managed to get together over 100 delegations from the countries, from different countries, and the so-called global south was also heavily represented during this summit. However, we see that there are clear divisions when it comes to unanimous support to Ukraine. India, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Thailand, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates attended the summit, but we haven't seen these names being represented on the as signatories of this joint communique, which was an important document that countries agreed to sign in order to express further support to Ukraine and the fundamental principles of the international law. However, I think the reasons behind these countries' decisions vary, because some of these countries are the members of the BRICS. Some of them have very close trade and economic relationship with Russia. And we have seen some official statements. For example, India mentions that they believe that the peace in Ukraine requires bringing together all parties, including Russia, which, as we know, was not represented during this summit, and they had no willingness to be represented there, of course. Similar reason was mentioned by Saudi Arabia, for example, but when it comes to South Africa, the reason behind their decision to abstain from signing this document was completely different. They argued that the presence of Israel was in a way showing some sort of double standards when it comes to commitment to international and respect to international law.
President Volodymyr Zelensky says that talks with Russia could start tomorrow if Russia pulls out of occupied Ukrainian territory. And that's really the crux of the matter, isn't it? Because we're in a situation where one side wants one thing, the other side wants another thing, and the two have, well, no common ground, except that ground that they are fighting over.
Absolutely. And I think the main reason why the summit cannot be a success, or any discussions when it comes to bringing peace to Ukraine, is Russia, of course, that has started the war in the first place. And we have seen, even prior to the beginning of the summit, Putin mentioned that he has no willingness to accept any sort of deal unless Ukraine, unless it involves Ukrainian capitulation, which, of course, is a no deal, and no country would ever never agree on these terms that Russia presents as a potential solution to this conflict. So the main reason is, of course, Vladimir Putin's aspirations and aims to basically destroy Ukraine. And of course, it's very important to bring as many countries as possible together. And I think the main reason why Zelensky was so optimistic about this summit was to show vast majority of countries backing Ukraine and putting pressure on Russia. But I don't see it as an immediate solution to the war, when Putin is still very much committed to destroying Ukraine through military force.
And that is extremely clear, and has been clear since February the 24th of 2022. Natia, Putin commenting over the weekend that his terms for peace would be that Kyiv has to cede more land, Ukrainian troops must retreat further, and Kyiv has to drop its NATO membership ambitions. Again, another sign that there is just too big a gap between these two sides.
Absolutely. This is just a reiteration of this so-called denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine, which Putin has been arguing for more than 2.5 years and proposing as a potential solution for stopping Russians further invading Ukrainian territory. And this is, of course, this cannot be accepted by President Zelensky or by any leader who wants its country to remain sovereign and to remain sovereign and independent, because this fundamentally violates the international law. And of course, there is if Putin emerges out of this 2.5 years of war effort victorious, then of course the main question is what is the limit to his ambitions? Because I certainly do not believe that Ukraine is the end game in this case.
Do you believe, Natia, that other states, including states in Europe, will be under threat?
Yes, possibly. Maybe not. When it comes to NATO allies, it's not an immediate threat as much as it is for Moldova, for example, and for other countries such as Georgia, Armenia, that want to and have aspirations to be more aligned with the European Union, with the West, rather than to side with Russia, and that is a real threat for these countries, of course. And in a future perspective, NATO's weakening NATO is, of course, one of the main aims that Putin is very much determined to accomplish.
Is this all part of what has been referred to as Putin's kind of empire building? Obviously, the collapse of the Soviet Union from 1989 to 1991 led to the breakup of the Soviet Union as Putin knew it. I think he stated that there are various lands that really are Russian lands. He wants to take them back. Is this essentially what he's trying to do, trying to reconstruct the Soviet Union?
Well, yes, in a way, yes. And we have seen a couple of days ago when former President Medvedev posted this map of Russia that included Ukraine, full territory of Ukraine as being Russian. This is very much in line with Russian vision, and it does not only include Ukraine. They believe that the so-called post-Soviet states are still, Russia still has and should have leverage on these states and should have a say when it comes to these countries' determination to whether they want to be, whether they want to side with Russia or with the European Union, for example. And they certainly believe that the choice is clear, because Russia has and should have influence within this region. And I think that is basically Putin's vision, and Ukraine is definitely a crucial element to accomplishing this vision.
Indeed, as you point out, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, all with that ambition of being part of the European Union. Jens Stoltenberg earlier speaking about the delays in supplying weapons. Russia trying to advance, as we understand it, before Ukraine gets a delivery of F-16 jets. This supply and the overreaching demand of Ukraine's military in order to carry on with this resistance of the Russian invasion, this is really the existential question, isn't it? How much can the West supply? How quickly can it get there?
Well, the delay has been extremely damaging for Ukraine's war effort, and we know that even today, even though finally the decision has been made within the U.S. to finally deliver this crucial military support to Ukraine, still the lack of pace and lack of determination in certain ways have really dragged Ukraine back, and this is a real problem because Russia is very much willing to put as much effort as it takes to advance militarily, and more they advance and more land they grab, of course they will have even when it comes to negotiations, they will have a certain momentum on their side. And even when it comes to convincing other countries that may not have a clear positioning when it comes to siding towards Ukraine or towards Russia, that is a very crucial element, because some countries, even now, when they were making a decision whether or not to sign this communique, they were looking at the situation on the ground. It is not clear, unfortunately, that Ukraine is winning the war. And many would argue that, quite contrary, in the past few months, we have been seeing that Russia has been pushing forward even more stronger than before.
Nonetheless, the summit, a qualified success, I think we can agree, in Switzerland this weekend. Natia, thank you for joining us, as always. Natia Seskuria, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. Thank you, Natia, for your analysis. Thank you for watching this Apropos. Do stay with us here on France 24.